Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Crypto Analyst here, and welcome back to another Bitcoin technical analysis. And today I wanted to explain whether or not Bitcoin can hit a new high, because the idea might not be as far-fetched as you might think. Now, earlier this morning, Bitcoin hit that $13,200 area before seeing some nice selling pressure of around $1,200 towards the downside. Now, it has bounced since then. It almost hit the 50 EMA, but didn't quite get there. So today I'm going to be breaking this down, talking about whether or not I think Bitcoin can hit this new high. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and stick around for the video, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as it does help out the channel a lot. But that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into this. Now, this $13,200 mark on Bitcoin is actually a lower swing high from its, recent run up top of around 13,800. So it was just short by a couple $100 over here, probably about $500 or $600. Now, if this is the local top right here, this would be a lower swing high for Bitcoin, which would ultimately be a very bearish thing. However, I do not believe that this is the top. The way that this is forming right here, this could very well just be a pullback, a retracement. And in fact, if we drew up a smaller fib retracement in between here, this would probably all make a lot of sense. So with Bitcoin pulling all the way back to around this $12,000 area, obviously with this being technical and psychological support, as I can show right over in here. So right over here, we see that this $12,000 area was resistance over here, was resistance again, and now it's being used as support. So former resistance turned support is a very good sign for Bitcoin of strength. Again, of this both being a psychological and a technical resistance, that's a really good thing to see. Now this needs to hold, this 50 EMA needs to hold, but ultimately the 200 EMA needs to hold. And I've talked about this in the past, why the 200 is so significant in this bull market that we're having right now. Ever since this 200 EMA crossed, or really since the 50 EMA crossed over the 200 EMA, the 200 EMA has not been broken, and every time that it's bounced off of this area, it's swung to a new high, and this is really, there's really no reason to believe that this time is going to be any different. Again over here, actually, I guess we can go and show it over here. So we bounced off this area, hit a new high, bounced off this area, hit a new high, bounced off the 200 EMA again, and now I believe we're going for another new high. Now, this one's going to be a little bit harder as we do get up here. It's going to be a little bit harder, and we know that the next resistance is around $17,000 if we go to the daily time scale. So if we go to the daily, I have this over here, and the reason that the 17K resistance is going to be over here on Bitcoin is because this is the last previous high that we have on Bitcoin before this all-time high area. Now, I've covered that in previous videos. I don't want to get too in-depth into that, and I kind of want to cover more stuff that's short to mid-term. So what do I believe that's going to happen to Bitcoin in this area? Do I think that it's just going to fall back here? Is it going to retest the 200 EMA? Personally, I don't think it's going to retest the 200 EMA before it hits a new high. Now, I think that it's very possible that we come down here towards this 50 EMA if it needs some more support, if it needs some more buyers, maybe even come back over here to this 236 fib retracement before bouncing to the upside. Again, all that would make a lot of sense. This is a whole support area down in here. Yes, we do have this $12,000 support, but we also have this area of around the lower 11,000s, lower to mid 11,000s, I would say, is a pretty fair support area that Bitcoin could bounce off as well because of the 236, as well as just some candle body closings in this area. So ultimately, I think that the chart could very well look something like this. Maybe this is the retracement. Hopefully, it can use the 50 EMA as support, because we haven't really seen it work too well since early June, but hopefully something along the idea of this guy, and then it can eventually come over here and conquer this new high. Now, maybe from here, this was just the dip buy that it needed in order to go back up. However, I think it's going to be a little bit more drawn out than just kind of bouncing from here and getting some nice V action. We've already gotten that over here. We've seen that nice V action. And for me, what this means is that this thing is going to continue moving towards the upside. Now, is it for certain? No. Is this just like a reversal pattern? I was talking about this being an inverse head and shoulders, and people said, that can only be used as a trend reversal pattern. Yes, that's kind of the focus in the creation of head and shoulders and inverse head and shoulders. However, I think the idea of it still, plays the exact same concept. If you're seeing one of these and it's very clear that, what looks like an inverse head and shoulders or a W or whatever, generally you like to have them at the bottom of trends, not at the top, and I understand that, but it's not to say that if you see one, it's a bearish formation because it's up here. I mean, a bullish formation is a bullish formation no matter where it is. Ideally, you like to have them at the bottom instead of the top, and I understand that, but I just want to make that clear because I had a lot of questions about that in the previous video. So personally, let me go ahead and kind of simplify this. Where I believe Bitcoin's going to go from here is probably bounce somewhere around this, in this upper 11,000, if not the middle, if not the mid 11,000 area, somewhere around here, and then continue towards the upside. Again, probably not quite like that. We can kind of draw this more realistically and make it look something like this where it creeps up, but I do think that it's going to hit this. Now, things can really start to get interesting on Bitcoin if it breaks this $13,800 area, because if we go back to the daily chart, what we can see over here on Bitcoin is that there's just not a lot of resistance, which I was talking about previously. So if we want to go ahead and kind of draw over here, what we can do is draw up a little sloppy draw and kind of showing that there just wasn't a significant amount of anything to be worried about up until the 17K range. Now, it's not to say that we can't stop anywhere in between here, but what it is saying is that this area in between, this kind of gray zone, is going to be a weak area of resistance. If Bitcoin can breach this 14.3K range, I don't really see why it could, why it should stop until at least $16,500. Again, you have these little tops over here, but I don't think that that's going to be anything significant. I don't think that that's anything to be worried about, and I do believe Bitcoin's going to hit a new high here. Now, you had a lot of people when this was happening over here saying, this is the top. Bitcoin will never get back up to $13,000 again. And sure enough, it's just beautiful price action from the daily chart. This just looks like a continuation to me. It's very possible that it isn't. And so I don't want to say that, I don't want to say don't take profits. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. Nothing I say is legal, tax, or financial advice. But what I am saying is just kind of like take a step back, look at this from the macro chart. If you think it's topped out, maybe take some profits. If you don't think it's topped out, maybe don't. I will say something to look at over here is the daily volume. It's not quite as good as it was. The daily volume is actually starting to fall off. So if that's a bearish indicator for you, something that you might want to look into, look into this stuff. Again, not trying to give financial advice, but I'm trying to look at this from all ends of the spectrum, because ultimately we're in this to make money, and with that, you have to learn when to take profits. So if Bitcoin ends up breaking this previous high, which I believe that it will, I think that it could very easily soar up to this 17K range. There's not a lot of resistance past this point, guys. If Bitcoin breaks the 17K range, it's almost certainly going to push for a new high. I would be amazed if Bitcoin got back up here, broke the 17K range, and then didn't even touch the previous high. So I think right now we're in the last stages of this heavy resistance on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin can start to clear some of these last resistance levels, there's no reason why it can't hit $17,000 or even $20,000 again. And of course, if it clears these two guys, the upside is anything's fair game, because of the fact that there's just no resistance anywhere over in here, and that was the wrong tool, because of the fact that there's just no resistance anywhere over here to the left. So things are going to start getting really interesting on Bitcoin. I would definitely keep an eye out on it. The market and the way that it's looking and working right now is definitely very interesting. A lot of the bears are looking at the daily chart and saying, well, it hasn't touched either the 200 or the 50 EMA in such a long time. We basically touched the 200 over here. It was very, very close. Bounced off the 382 plus the 200 EMA on the 4 hour, and this is almost the 50 EMA on the 1 day chart as well. So on the daily chart, I don't think that it's too big of a deal that we're so far from the 200 EMA. I think it's one of those things where you could definitely be looking to take some sort of profits. But in the same sense, guys, this is crypto. There is very large extended periods of time where the 200 EMA on the daily chart doesn't get touched. From over here, the last time that 200 EMA was touched from July 15th, 2017, and the next time it was touched was February 5th of 2018. So there are extended periods, especially in these parabolic bull markets that Bitcoin tends to have, where this 200 EMA doesn't get touched. Now, the next time it gets touched, obviously, it's going to be at a significantly lower price, probably somewhere around this $8,000 area, I would imagine, if it was to get touched, because it's just so far away from it right now, and the time it would take to get back to the 200 would be a substantial amount of time. But that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the indicators and oscillators, because over here on the daily chart, what we could have seen is that there was actually double bullish divergence for Bitcoin. Over here on the RSI, we saw double bullish divergence as well, and not really the kind that I like to take, but you can definitely see that this is a higher swing low on the RSI. And on the daily chart, which I think was the best scenario of bullish divergence, was this quadruple bullish divergence from the 4-hour MACD. Now, this was absolutely phenomenal, because what we can see is that Bitcoin had 4 higher swing lows. Over here it said 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And what this says is that there's lower levels of negative momentum on every swing low on this MACD coming into Bitcoin. Again, that is just showing that the bears are significantly losing power on 4 different attempts, and it was time for the bulls to make a move towards the upside. It was very, very clear quadruple bullish divergence. We were talking about that one in Discord, and it was a really cool thing to actually get to watch it play out. Over here on Bitcoin, on the RSI, it wasn't really as evident. However, this is just one of those times where you have to be used to using the RSI, because you kind of just know that the way that it tends to work. If it drops like all this without getting any sort of bounce, you know that it's going to actually start getting a bounce over here. I mentioned that in like the past 2 or 3 videos about why the RSI should bounce around this area, if not, you know, a couple points below at the oversold territory. So with Bitcoin actually bouncing off of here and actually getting rejected over here, this is actually the target that I had on Bitcoin. Surprisingly enough, this 70 area, otherwise known as the overbought area, was my target. So with it actually touching this, double topping on the RSI, not to say that that's too significant because it's the RSI, not a candle chart, but with it actually getting rejected from this overbought territory, you could actually see some more downside to come, at least to the RSI. Now, does that always correlate perfectly with the candle chart? Does that mean that this thing's coming back down? Not necessarily, but you could see that the bulls could lose some strength in this area before regrouping. I mean, it just had a great run up, quadruple bullish divergence over here, but it might be time for this guy to reset a little bit. So I would imagine that this actually falls a little bit more before bouncing, but I do think that this previous high up here is going to be tested. And, you know, in my opinion, I think that this is going to be broken. I know there's going to be people who disagree with me on that, and, you know, it's totally understandable. You know, I understand why they think that, you know, it's going to happen, but the idea that the low is not in on Bitcoin is an absurd theory, in my opinion. I don't mean to be rude to anyone who believes it, but the idea that the bear market isn't over and that the lows, you know, the new lows are still to come it's just not probable in any way at this point. And I might have to actually do that in a separate video, but as for right now, guys, the market looks incredibly healthy. Once again, I want to talk about just how important that this 200 EMA holding was. That just shows such a healthy sign for this market, and for Bitcoin bouncing off this 200 EMA again, it's just a continuation, and it's just one of those clear signs that this is going to be a continuation of the bull market. Until this 200 EMA breaks, guys, there's no reason for me to believe that this bull market's over. So that's really kind of my, you know, end all say all. Not and I say that as like it's an end all say all. It's not really an end all say all, but this is going to be one of my first indicators that the market's reversing if the 200 EMA doesn't hold. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Are you guys bullish or bearish? Can Bitcoin actually hit this new high? Let me know in the comment section below. If you guys did enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I will see you guys in the next video.